The throne room of the Celestara palace was unlike any place I had ever seen. Towering walls of crystalline metal reflected the ambient light of the massive energy cores embedded in the ceiling. Holographic banners shimmered with the symbols of the royal family, shifting colors with the subtle motion of the air. Every corner was alive with soft hums of energy and the faint scent of alien flora that the architects had somehow incorporated into the structure. And there she was, the alien queen herself, sitting atop a throne that seemed to float on a pool of violet light, eyes sharper than any blade I'd ever faced. Her daughter, the princess, hovered slightly to her side, wings folded elegantly, radiating a calm yet formidable presence. And I, just a human, stood there, acutely aware of every detail in the room in the absolute silence that followed my entrance. "Human," the queen began, her voice echoing like liquid crystal, "you are far braver than most of your kind. But bravery without discretion is risky." I swallowed hard, knowing exactly what she meant. My previous encounters with her people had already earned me the wary attention of the entire royal court. "I am aware," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "But I am here to serve and to answer questions truthfully." The princess, whose violet eyes shimmered with curiosity, leaned slightly forward. Her gaze was piercing, almost predatory. "Then answer me this," she said, voice softer than her mother's but sharper than any command I had ever heard. "Human, who do you find attractive?" The unexpected question. A simple question. Or at least it should have been simple. I froze, heart thudding in my chest. The princess's question carried weight far beyond casual curiosity. In her culture, such inquiries were not idle. They carried social, political, and even interstellar consequences. A misstep here could mean humiliation, or worse. I considered my options. I could answer cautiously, speak diplomatically, or deflect. But instinct overrode caution. Honesty had always been my default mode, and something in her expectant gaze made me realize that deceit would be more dangerous than truth. "You," I said without hesitation, and the room went silent. The silence that followed. Time seemed to freeze. The hum of energy cores faded to a low, almost imperceptible drone. The queen's eyes narrowed, her lips pursed in careful contemplation. Even the attendants, hovering silently at the edges of the throne room, seemed suspended in disbelief. The princess's eyes widened slightly, and then she leaned back, a hand brushing her cheek in thought. "Interesting," she murmured. "Bold. Honest. Perhaps too honest." "I do not mean disrespect," I said quickly, aware of the precariousness of the situation. "I simply speak what is true. You are unlike anyone I've ever met. Your presence, your intelligence, your strength, it commands attention." The queen regarded me with a tilt of her head, studying my expression. "And you would dare speak thus to a princess? To one who has the weight of a kingdom upon her shoulders?" "I would," I replied firmly, "because honesty is the only way to survive and perhaps, to be understood." The test of character. The princess tilted her head slightly, considering my words. Then she stood, moving forward with a grace that made the floor beneath her seem irrelevant. The light from the throne reflected in her hair, casting rainbow-like patterns across the room. "You dare speak honestly," she said softly. "Most humans would lie. Most humans would hide themselves, grovel, or attempt flattery. I am not most humans," I said, meeting her gaze without faltering. "I'm only myself. That is all I can offer." A faint smile curved her lips, almost imperceptible but enough to draw my attention. She circled slowly, like a predator examining her prey, but not with malice. With curiosity, with interest. "You are bold, human. Recklessly so," she said finally. "Tell me, do you fear me?" "No," I replied. "I respect you. That is different. Fear is for those who do not understand." Her eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. And yet, understanding carries danger as well. A human who speaks without caution is often destroyed by the very truths he utters. The conversation deepens. For what seemed like hours, the princess and I spoke. Not just about beauty or attraction, but about our worlds, our values, our fears. She asked me questions I never imagined answering aloud. What do humans value most? Would you betray your own species for someone you trust? Do you believe love can exist beyond boundaries, beyond species? Every answer I gave required thought, honesty, and courage. And every answer seemed to draw her closer, not physically but emotionally, mentally, and, perhaps spiritually. At one point she touched my hand. A fleeting, light touch, but enough to send a jolt through me. You speak truths that humans hide, she said softly. Perhaps that is why I find your presence intriguing. I swallowed, my heart racing. And I find your presence impossible to ignore. She studied me, a curious expression lingering. Then she nodded slightly as if confirming something to herself. The Queen's reaction. The Queen, who had watched our exchange silently, finally spoke. I see why you survived among us, human. Your courage and honesty are rare. Her gaze shifted to her daughter. And I see why my child is drawn to you. But be warned, this attraction carries consequences. In our society, emotions are not casual. A misstep can lead to exile, or worse. I understand, I said. And I accept the risk. The princess approached, her wings folding behind her elegantly. Then you are truly remarkable, she said softly, almost a whisper meant only for me. And perhaps, worth discovering more. The long-term consequences. Weeks passed and our interactions continued. The throne room incident became the talk of the palace, though not openly. Courtiers whispered, observing the subtle changes in the princess's demeanor when I was near. The Queen maintained her composure outwardly, but I caught glimpses of approval in her eyes. We were no longer just human and alien observer. We were two beings navigating trust, attraction, and the immense pressure of interstellar politics. Every glance, every shared mission, every private conversation added layers of connection and tension. A moment of quiet reflection. One night, in the palace gardens, she approached me while I studied the alien constellations above. The twin moons reflected off the crystalline fountains, casting soft light on her features. You are reckless, human, she said softly. And yet, I admire it. Your honesty, your bravery, your unwillingness to hide. I admire you too, I replied. For your strength, your clarity, your willingness to see me as I am. She smiled faintly, almost shyly, a human-like expression that took me by surprise. Perhaps, we are not so different after all. The very lengthy ending. The throne room would never be the same after that day. My answer, though simple, you, had left ripples across the palace. Courtiers adjusted their behavior subtly, the princess carried herself with a new confidence, and even the Queen's calculated demeanor softened ever so slightly when we were near. Over the following months, our bond strengthened. I accompanied her on missions, advised her on matters that bridged human and alien perspectives, and gradually learned the depths of her intelligence, humor, and heart. Each encounter, each mission, each conversation, was a test of trust, a negotiation of boundaries, and an exploration of a connection that transcended species. One evening, after a grueling week of interstellar negotiations, she found me alone in the palace library. The room was vast, filled with floating holographic books and alien artifacts that hummed with contained energy. You have changed the court, she said softly, stepping closer. Not just by your honesty, but by the way you see things differently. You make them see differently too. I smiled faintly. And you have changed me. I've learned more about patience, strategy, and understanding someone completely than I ever could have imagined. She placed a hand on my shoulder, the touch gentle but firm. You risked everything by answering my question truthfully. And now, the palace watches not only our actions but the bond that has formed between us. Do you understand the weight of your answer? I do, I replied. And I accept it, because some truths are worth the consequences. Her violet eyes met mine, unflinching, intense, and yet vulnerable. Then perhaps, it is time for the court to see what I have seen all along. That you are remarkable. And that I find you equally so. I felt a warmth spread through me, a combination of relief, awe, and something deeper. A connection that could survive not just palace politics but galaxies. The court, when it eventually learned of our bond, fell silent. Not in judgment, but in awe. And in that silence I understood something crucial. Truth, honesty, and courage could not only protect a human in a palace of aliens, but could also win hearts across the stars. From that moment I was no longer just a visitor in their world. I was an ally, a confidant, and perhaps the one who could stand beside her not just as a human, but as someone who had earned her trust and respect. The princess smiled faintly, a silent acknowledgement that no words could capture fully. And as the twin moons shone through the palace windows, I realized that the galaxy, vast, infinite, and dangerous, was a little brighter, because honesty had carved a path where fear and caution had once ruled. And perhaps that path would lead to something even greater than either of us had dared to imagine.